I tested 7 of the most purchased coffee brands in Australia. Only 3 passed. The worst is the jar that's been in Australian cupboards since 1853. The iconic blue label your grandparents trusted. Open the lid, read the ingredient panel. Water, glucose syrup, coffee extract 18%. Chicory root, caramel color 150D, flavor. This isn't coffee. It's a sweetened syrup engineered to approximate the memory of coffee, colored with an additive international food. Safety bodies have flagged for containing a potential carcinogen, sold on the authority of a label that stopped meaning what you think 70 years ago. The brand is still the default choice in thousands of homes. That continuity feels like quality. It's margin optimization frozen in a 1950s formulation. If this changed how you see the coffee aisle, subscribe. We investigate a new category every week, and it's always the brands you actually buy. Number 7. Coles brand Fairtrade Organic Coffee. Ground, 200 grams. About $6.50 at Kohl's. The front label says organic. It says Fairtrade. It says sustainably sourced. 3 certification logos printed in green. The promise is clean coffee, grown without synthetic pesticides, bought at a fair price, processed with care. Now read the back panel. Country of origin, product of multiple countries. Certification, Fairtrade and Australian Certified Organic. Both are legitimate, both verify the farm, neither tests the bag. Organic certification in Australia confirms the coffee was grown without prohibited pesticides. It does not test the finished product for contamination after harvest. Independent testing by consumer advocacy groups has repeatedly flagged supermarket own-brand coffees for pesticide drift and post-harvest contamination during storage and shipping. Here is how it happens. Coffee is grown on a certified organic farm, harvested clean, then stored in a shipping container that previously held conventionally grown coffee treated with pesticides. The organic beans absorb residues from surfaces, air, packaging materials. By the time the bag reaches the shelf at Kohl's, the coffee may carry detectable pesticide levels it was never directly sprayed with. The certification is still valid. The contamination is also real. Food Standards Australia. New Zealand permits low-level pesticide residues in coffee, even organic coffee, as long as they fall below maximum residue limits. Those limits are set for individual compounds, not cumulative exposure. If you drink 3 cups per day from a contaminated batch, you are adding that residue load every single day. FSANZ's risk model does not account for the interaction between multiple low-dose exposures over months or years. The residue in 1 cup may be legal. The residue in 1,000 cups is something your body manages alone. Kohl's does not publish independent test results for its own brand organic coffee. The certification process requires documentation. It does not require the retailer to show you what was found in the finished product. That opacity is structural. Supermarket private labels prioritize cost. Transparency costs money. Independent lab testing, batch tracking, published results. Kohl's has chosen not to spend it. Here is the second problem: ground coffee. Coffee begins losing flavor and antioxidant content the moment it is ground. Oxidation starts immediately. Within 2 weeks, the volatile compounds that give coffee its depth are largely gone. Ground coffee in a sealed bag on a supermarket shelf may have been ground weeks or months before you buy it. There is no roast date on the Kohl's package, no grind date. A best before date 18 months out tells you nothing about freshness. It tells you the product is shelf stable. Compare that to the clean options we will show you in a moment. Those bags carry a roast date printed within 2 to 4 weeks of purchase. They sell whole beans, not pre-ground. You grind them at home or ask the cafe to grind them fresh. The flavor difference is immediate, and the oxidation clock starts when you decide, not when the factory decided months ago. Coles brand Fairtrade organic coffee costs $6.50 for 200 grams, $32.50 per kilogram. Cheaper than premium single-origin options, but not cheaper than the other compromised brands on this list. You are paying for the certification story, not for tested purity, not for freshness. The front label is doing work the contents cannot. If you are buying this coffee because the organic label makes you feel safer, you are trusting a process that verifies the farm and ignores the supply chain. If you are buying it because it is affordable, you are paying for a product that was ground weeks or months ago and has been oxidizing in the bag ever since. Organic certification is not a lie. It is also not the whole picture. The beans were grown cleanly. What happened to them after harvest is the part the label does not tell you, and Coles has published no independent test results we could locate to fill that gap. The certification closes one door. It leaves another wide open. Number 6. Lavazza Qualità Rossa, ground coffee, 250 grams, $11 at Woolworths, Coles, and IGA. The front of the package says Product of Italy. The label carries the Lavazza crest, the red and cream design that has signaled Italian coffee heritage since 1895. The promise is authenticity, tradition, European quality. The package feels premium. The price supports that story, $44 per kilogram, almost 40% more than the Coles own brand organic. Now read the ingredient panel. Blend of roasted and ground coffee from various origins. No country breakdown, no farm, no region, no traceability. The only geographic claim that holds is that the blending happened in Italy. The beans themselves are anonymous. Reports by European consumer groups have criticized mass-market Italian coffee brands for sourcing globally, blending in Italy to meet a flavor profile and a cost target, then stamping the package with Italian identity. The romance is geographic. The beans are a commodity blend optimized for margin and consistency. Here is why that matters. Coffee is one of the most chemically treated crops in global agriculture. Pesticide use varies enormously by country and by farm. A blend that sources from multiple countries without disclosing which ones makes it structurally impossible for you to assess exposure risk. If the blend includes beans from a country with weak pesticide regulation, you have no way to know. If it includes beans from a certified organic cooperative, you have no way to know that either. The label tells you the blend was assembled in Italy. It does not tell you what went into it or where it came from before it arrived. Lavazza is not required to disclose the country breakdown. Australian labeling law requires only that multi-origin blends state product of various countries or use similarly broad language. Lavazza has chosen the maximum vagueness the law permits. That choice protects supply chain flexibility. If the price of Brazilian Arabica spikes, the company can substitute beans from Vietnam or Colombia without changing the label. It also erases accountability. You cannot trace contamination back to a source if the source is never named. The second issue is the same one we saw with Coles. Pre-ground coffee in a sealed bag with no roast date. A best before date printed on the back, typically 18 months from packaging, tells you how long the product remains shelf stable. It does not tell you when the coffee was roasted or when it was ground. Ground coffee begins oxidizing immediately. The volatile aromatics that define flavor start degrading within days. By the time you open the bag, the coffee may have been ground for weeks. The flavor you're tasting is not the flavor the beans had when they were fresh. It is the flavor of oxidized coffee masked by the roasting profile Lavazza engineered to survive months on the shelf. Compare that to a single-origin coffee from a transparent roaster. Those bags name the farm or the cooperative. They print the roast date. They sell whole beans. You grind them yourself, and the flavor difference is not subtle. It is the difference between coffee that tastes like the fruit it came from and coffee that tastes like the factory process that stabilized it for logistics. Lavazza Qualità Rossa costs $11 for 250 grams. You are paying for the Italian heritage story, not for traceability, not for freshness. The brand has been in Australian supermarkets for decades. Familiarity feels like quality, especially when the price is higher than the budget options. But the ingredient panel reveals a product with no geographic accountability and no transparency about when it was processed. The premium you are paying is for the label equity Lavazza built over a century. It is not for the contents. Industry analyses have shown that mass-market coffee blends prioritize consistency and cost over origin quality. The goal is to deliver the same flavor profile in every bag, regardless of harvest variability, and to do it at a price point that moves volume. That requires blending beans from multiple countries and multiple harvests, often including lower-grade beans that would not sell well on their own. The roasting process is then tuned to mask the defects and deliver a uniform taste. It works. The coffee tastes like Lavazza every time. It does not taste like the farm it came from, because it did not come from one farm. It came from a purchasing department that bought whatever met the spec that quarter. Lavazza is not lying. The package says product of Italy, and the blending did happen in Italy. It says blend of roasted and ground coffee from various origins, and that is accurate. The label is doing exactly what it is required to do under Australian law. It is also doing exactly what it is designed to do under marketing strategy. Sell you Italian heritage. Hide the anonymous global commodity blend that heritage is now covering for. The story is premium. The transparency is absent. Number 5. Moccona Classic Medium Roast. Freeze-dried instant coffee. 200-gram jar. $14 at Woolworths, Coles, and IGA. This is Australia's best-selling instant coffee. The jar has been in Australian kitchens for decades. The label says 100% coffee. It says rich aroma, smooth taste. The promise is convenience without compromise. Pure coffee crystals that dissolve instantly and deliver the flavor of brewed coffee in seconds. Now read what the label does not say. Instant coffee is made by brewing liquid coffee at industrial scale, then spray drying it at temperatures above 200 degrees Celsius to create the crystals you see in the jar. That high heat process evaporates the water and locks in the soluble coffee compounds. It also creates acrylamide. Acrylamide is a chemical compound that forms when certain foods are heated to high temperatures. Food standards. Australia-New Zealand has classified it as a potential carcinogen. The International Agency for Research on Cancer lists it as Group 2A, probably carcinogenic to humans. Instant coffee contains acrylamide because the process that makes instant coffee possible requires the exact conditions that form it. This is not a contamination problem. This is a process problem. The acrylamide is not drifting in from the supply chain or leaching from packaging. It is being created inside the manufacturing plant every time the liquid coffee hits the spray dryer. The higher the temperature, the faster the crystals form. The faster the crystals form, the cheaper the production cost. The cheaper the production cost, the higher the margin. Moccona has optimized for speed and margin. Acrylamide formation is the trade-off. Food Standards Australia, New Zealand acknowledges acrylamide in coffee. The agency published a dietary exposure assessment in 2023, confirming that instant coffee is one of the primary sources of acrylamide in the Australian diet. FSANZ has not set maximum residue limits for acrylamide in coffee. The European Union has established benchmark levels: 400 micrograms per kilogram for roasted coffee, 850 micrograms per kilogram for instant coffee. But those are guidelines, not enforceable limits, and Australia has not adopted equivalent standards. The industry is aware of the issue. The industry has not committed to testing every batch or publishing the results. Moccona has published no independent batch test results for acrylamide that we could locate. The company is owned by JDE Peets, a Dutch multinational that operates in over 50 countries and reported €7.4 billion in revenue in 2022. It has the resources to test every production run and make the data public. It has chosen not to. That choice is legal. It is also deliberate. Transparency would invite comparison, and comparison would reveal that acrylamide levels vary batch to batch depending on roasting temperature, spray dryer settings, and bean quality. Publishing those numbers would give consumers the ability to make an informed choice. Not publishing them protects the perception that 100% coffee means 100% safe. Here is the exposure math. 1 teaspoon of Moccona Classic weighs approximately 1.8 grams. If the acrylamide level is near the European benchmark of 850 micrograms per kilogram, 1 teaspoon contains roughly 1.5 micrograms of acrylamide. 3 cups per day equals 4.5 micrograms per day. Over a year, that is approximately 1,600 micrograms. 1.6 milligrams of a probable carcinogen consumed in a product marketed as pure coffee. FSANZ's risk model assumes occasional exposure. It does not account for decades of daily consumption, and it does not model the cumulative effect when acrylamide from coffee combines with acrylamide from other heat-processed foods like biscuits, chips, and toast. The label says 100% coffee, and that claim is accurate in the narrowest possible sense. There are no additives, no fillers, only coffee. What the label does not say is that the process used to turn brewed coffee into crystals creates a compound the World Health Organization has flagged for decades, and the manufacturer has not shown you the test results that would let you decide whether the convenience is worth the exposure. Moccona costs $14 for 200 grams, $70 per kilogram, nearly 60% more than Lavazza, more than double the cost of the Coles own brand organic. You are paying for the convenience of instant coffee and the brand equity Moccona built as Australia's most trusted instant. You are not paying for transparency. You are not paying for testing. You are paying for a jar that has been in the cupboard since your childhood, and the assumption that longevity equals safety. Longevity equals market dominance. It does not equal disclosure. Instant coffee is not going to kill you from 1 cup. The question is whether you want to consume a probable carcinogen every single day for decades when the manufacturer has the ability to show you the levels and has chosen not to. Moccona has made that choice for you.